Great.
And welcome. And we'll hand it off to Tricia Smith, our Grand President.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to join us tonight and for all that you do for Delta Sigma Pi. Throughout the summer, we've been holding webinars to provide updates for members on the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on the fraternity, our chapters and organizational operations, and next steps as we look at the upcoming year. So joining me in presenting this evening, we have Lisa Brown, our National Organizational Development Committee Chair, Jeremy Levine, our Chief Operations Officer and guide through the webinar this evening. And tonight our agenda includes a COVID update from Jeremy, an update on our strategic priorities, and updates on our Leadership Foundation, Delta Sigma Pi's DEI initiatives, and an overview of what the next year looks like. So at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Jeremy to talk more about Delta Sigma Pi's response to the changes the pandemic created in our environment. Jeremy? You are muted, Jeremy.
Sorry about that. Where was I? Anyways, the changes have been plentiful. Lots of changes since the pandemic started. But since March, the Board of Directors has been meeting quite regularly to address the effects of the pandemic and all of the variations to our operations. Not all the decisions have necessarily been easy, but the board has been quite thoughtful and prompt in taking action to address the evolving needs of our chapters. From the beginning, the changes have been made with the mindset of long-term success of our chapters and trying to reduce stress for our collegiate members and alumni volunteers that support them, even if sometimes those changes challenge the norms of what we're used to. Pretty early on in the creation of, or in handling of the pandemic, the board created a set of task forces that drove the decisions and the suggestions that the board enacted over the past few months. So right away in March, the board took action to allow for modified or even non-ritualistic initiations so that the spring pledges could join the Brotherhood in a safe way. As we head into fall, the recommendation of the task force, and the board has approved, is 2 new versions of our ritual. One is optimized for being conducted virtually, whereas the other is optimized for being conducted following social distancing standards. Logistics and some of the flow of the ritual has evolved with the adjustments, but the key meanings behind all of these rituals, they've very much stayed the same, and that's ultimately what's been most important from the beginning. The board has also approved an adjusted set of standards for our collegiate chapters. These standards are designed to allow for equal review of our chapters, even when they're operating very non-equal situations. The new CMP requirements include a reduced number of professional events, reduced service events, as well as more flexibility in some of the financial requirements and some of the chapter recognition requirements, which is one of our higher level tiers of CMP. Probably one of the most significant shifts to what we would know as a standard of chapter operations this coming fall is obviously going to be recruiting in this new environment. And I know many of you submitted questions asking about what is recruitment going to look like. Whether it's virtual, whether it's socially distanced, it's going to be different, but at its core, it's going to happen. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of change, but there's honestly a sense of normalcy around it. Everything that we have taught for years about how to best recruit still applies in this very different environment. The concepts of connectivity and education about what it means to be a Delta Sig surpasses any different way that we're communicating or interacting. We believe, very well positioned in this environment, being that as an organization we're built on professionalism and professional growth. And ultimately, that's what these students today need more than ever. especially when they look at a potential outlook post-college, a job outlook that is less ideal than they would hope. So we do feel that we have the ability to be incredibly successful with virtual recruitment. That being said, our chapters do need support. They need the help in adjusting and traveling and figuring out what this new recruitment process looks like. In conversation with our support team, both volunteers and staff, it's been pretty clear that our chapters know what they need to do. They just need the confidence to go do it. And that's a big piece, and that's really what our volunteer team has been providing wonderful support. DDs, those on the ground have been a wonderful support, being equipped with additional resources that we've made available, as well as a series of webinars and one-on-one consultation visits with our staff and our chapter service team. So we do believe we've provided some significant support to the chapters in order for them to be successful. It is true, some of our chapters are going to struggle. I don't want to make a picture that everything's going to be easy. Some of our chapters are going to struggle with the recruitment. Many of these are chapters that have struggled with recruitment in the past. And some are going to be new struggles for chapters. But through the outreach from the staff and the volunteers, we're hoping to mitigate the effects of these challenges. And to really find the support that the chapters need. One area for significant optimism, as far as we're concerned, we weren't sure what expansion opportunities may look like, especially as college campuses change. But as of right now, the outlook is looking pretty great on the expansion front. We do have a handful of colonies that are already on a strong path towards installation. But we also have many more universities that we're working very closely with right now in hopes of starting new colonies in the fall. A significant change to chapter operations that is not necessarily the result, or not all the result of the pandemic, but is definitely going to be helpful given the pandemic, is our brand new pledge education program. So we announced this about a year ago. We've been developing it ever since. We're very excited for it to now be live and up and running. But the new pledge program is going to focus significantly on education of the pledge class through online lessons and online quizzes, something that is incredibly pertinent right now. There's also, just to be clear, guided discussion and interaction between the pledge educator and the pledges that they'll be able to do, whether socially distanced or through virtual meetings. So we do think that it's going to be a big help for us this year. In-person chapter consultation obviously hasn't happened since March, but our chapter services team, and specifically our educational leadership consultants, they've been working very hard, and they've been able to stay connected with our chapters, honestly, in a way that is unprecedented. I can't imagine another time where in that same 6 months history, we'd be able to have hit every single chapter multiple times over. So whether it's through regular phone calls, whether it's through virtual meetings with individuals, groups of officers, the consultation program, although very different, it does continue and will continue throughout the year ahead. So that's something we're excited about. A recent decision of the board, actually just being announced this week, I think the message went out today, is about our chapter fees and our the structure for some of that for our chapters going into this coming fall. So the board has made some changes to what we are charging chapters, as well as the processes for some of the late fees. And all of this is with the goal of reducing the financial burden to our chapters. Ultimately, we want them to be able to focus on strong operations and be able to focus on things like their own brotherhood and their professional development and frankly, their growth as a chapter, so that we can be strong on the other side of this. Obviously, we still need the money, so that we haven't waived everything, but there's been some significant reductions in the fees, as well as just a general acceptance of leniency and flexibility. So the big thing we're encouraging all chapters is if they're having trouble paying their bills, talk to us and we'll be able to work with them. One last big effect from the pandemic, a positive one that's worth sharing here, is just the increased signs of brotherhood and alumni engagement. Um, Whether it's through the increased communications, just because of so much change, we've been trying to keep alumni and collegiates in the loop, as well as through various virtual means. We've seen wonderful alumni engagement across the board. And that's something we're very excited about and hope to see continue over the coming months. One just wonderful sign of this that I'll mention, particularly because it's thanks to so many of you that are on the call here tonight, but we've actually seen an increase in donations to the foundation. And I know Trisha's going to talk a bit about that in a bit, but especially during this time of the pandemic, we've been able to see a year-over-year increase, which is something that most organizations have not been able to see. So we're incredibly appreciative and of all the engagement and support, whatever that may look like in your case. So talking about engagement, talking about growth, sounds an awful lot like our strategic priorities. So I'm going to pass things over to Lisa Brown, who is our National Organizational Development Committee Chair, and she's going to talk about our strategic priorities.
Great, thanks, Jeremy. We are 4 years into our 5-year set of strategic priorities, which are built on and connected to the purpose of Delta Sigma Pi. There are 4 high-level categories, and it was actually kind of exciting to attend the board meeting this last weekend and see that the agenda was kind of built around them, and that the things that we're working on really fit within those 4 categories. So how are we doing with them? So let's start off with member education. So as you see, 99% of chapter participation in a leadership development training. And that even includes alumni chapters, which is, there's actually a 38% increase in alumni chapters participating in this development training. So our goal is 90, and we hit it out of the park with 99%. So really exciting. We have 2/3 of chapters that have DDs that have participated in leadership development. Our goal is 90%, and we're actually excited that we could reach for that potential of getting 90% with new leadership training modules that are going to be available soon for CDL. So stay tuned for more of that. If we move on to membership growth, we are holding strong with 225 chapters and 2 to be installed next month. That's actually 15 new chapters in the last 4 years. So we are looking at those growth numbers, and as Jeremy just spoke about, there's lots of opportunity there for us. 77% of chapters have at least 30 members with an average chapter size of 53. Consultants are working really closely with the chapters that are below that threshold and getting that extra support. So hopefully recruiting will go well for them in this virtual world in this next year. The third one, membership engagement, 150% increase in tracking of alumni engagement. And what does that include? It's volunteers, donors, participation in alumni receptions and national events, supporters of chapters, so speaking at a professional event, even engaging on the website and updating contact information. All of those are important ways that alumni are engaging with the fraternity and keeping up. Our goal is 20,000 alumni engagement each year. So thank you all for participating on that call, because this all is part of that engagement. And as for this year, we're very optimistic for expanding engagement opportunities because of virtual chapter events, and hoping that chapters are able to connect more with their alumni through virtual opportunities, networking and speakers. So stay tuned, let's see how that all goes. And then in this category, we have our attrition rate, which has been about level over the last 4 years at 2.8%. And our fourth and final goal, organizational excellence. I won't go too much into the foundation because that's next on the agenda, but from a staff growth perspective, there's been growth within the chapter services team, providing such great services for our chapters, which we just heard about from Jeremy. So it's kind of a quick update on our 4 categories. This upcoming year, my committee will be working with the board to evaluate where we are and where we want to go in the next 5 years. And as you see, 2021 is the end of this set, so we'll be putting together the next set of strategic priorities. I anticipate the high-level categories staying the same, with a potential different focus due to some of the cultural changes that we've seen in the past 6 months. So I look forward to sharing more on how we did and where we're going at GCC in Cleveland. Fingers crossed, we'll be seeing everybody in person. So with that, that's an update on the strategic priorities, and I'll pass over to our Grand President, Tricia Smith.
Thanks, Lisa. So as Grand President, I also have the honor of serving as a Leadership Foundation trustee. And this year, the foundation had a record-breaking year, eclipsing the $600,000 donation level for the first time. I know many on this call tonight are Delta Sigma Pi donors, so I want to say a really big thank you. Thank you for supporting the Leadership Foundation. Thank you for supporting Delta Sigma Pi. With your donations, we are able to provide so many opportunities for our collegiate Delta Sigs today and those future Delta Sigs of tomorrow. As with much of the world, the Board of Trustees annual meeting this fall will be held virtually over the weekend of September 26th and 27th. The foundation also has many initiatives that will be launching soon. That includes a stewardship committee, which has just launched to enhance stewardship and recognition touch points for our donors and members. And chapter champions, who are volunteers dedicated to help local chapters engage and raise money from alumni for their chapter leadership funds. In addition, the foundation is exploring ways to expand approved usage of those chapter leadership funds. And a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Education Fund was launched this summer to support the fraternity's educational efforts, programs, and initiatives directly related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So watch out for more information on how you can donate directly to this fund to be coming out. So as we think about Delta Sigma Pi's response to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we can't help but remember that Delta Sigma Pi was established to provide an opportunity for students at New York University who were denied admission to other organizations because of their identities. Since 1907, we have had some proud moments. However, it is important to acknowledge our DEI path hasn't been perfect. While we have been evolving as an organization, the events across the nation and around the world in recent months have made it clear that our DEI efforts need to accelerate. Fraternity and foundation board members and staff have been engaged in nearly daily conversations looking at operations and practices through fresh eyes. As such, we've implemented the following changes. Addition of a diversity and inclusion training event and action plan to CMP. Addition of a chapter diversity assessment to CMP for the 2021 to 22 CMP academic year. Addition of DEI module to the Certified Delta Sig Leader training, and additional staff-wide and elected leader training. Reviewing approaches to recruiting volunteers at all levels, and an updated communication plan for promoting those volunteer opportunities. A new DEI session will be presented as part of the virtual lead program, and we'll be developing how-to guide for writing proposals to better equip our members in suggesting changes for the organization. And of course, the appointment of educational and leadership consultant Jasmine Flores as our central office staff lead on DEI issues. And we recognize there have been many changes within our organization over the past several months. And I can't thank our central office staff, our board of directors, national leaders, and chapters for their diligence, work, and support throughout this process. So as we look to the future, we recognize that there will continue to be change in how we interact together virtually, or hopefully in person again soon, as well as within our operations. Last weekend, the Board of Directors held our semi-annual board meeting virtually. Over 7 hours, we discussed Delta Sigma Pi's strategic priorities, the state of our fraternity and changes made due to the pandemic, and reviewed recommendations that were submitted to us by members, chapters, our task force, and committees. The Board of Directors also made the decision during that meeting to transition our spring provincial lead conferences to virtual format for 2021. The 1st of August also started our new risk management policy. In coordination with our insurance firm, Holmes Murphy, we have streamlined our risk management policy and built supporting best practices for chapters to provide them with better guidance within our policies and give them procedural best practices in following those policies. We're also seeking volunteers to work on a task force, reviewing our individual disciplinary policy based on a recommendation we received from a chapter. This review will look at our procedures and how our policy can be updated to best support our chapters and members in the environments that they're facing on their campuses today. Now, we have a lot of exciting educational opportunities coming up this fall, including 2 weeks of learning and bonding virtually with a reformatted lead in October. Details on sessions, networking opportunities, and registrations will be coming out soon. I have to say, I've had a sneak peek of the agenda, and I am so excited for the opportunities where we will have a chance to connect, just virtually. Also coming out this fall, our new Certified Delta Sig Leader learning modules. So those of you who are planning to renew your CDL, those of you thinking about obtaining it, watch for additional information on those modules as well. But I know the biggest question by far is, what about Congress next summer? As of now, no decisions have been made for next summer. And we are thankful that we do not yet need to make those decisions. Our goal is to do everything that we can to hold the event in person, as long as it is safe and as long as it is reasonable. We recognize that our world may be different forever. And so there are ongoing discussions of what that looks like long-term for Delta Sigma Pi, including areas where we can have more online learning and engagement opportunities, as well as reviewing our policies and membership definitions to ensure that we have the flexibility needed to keep us relevant long into the future. We've all been facing much uncertainty these past few months. Yet while times have been tough, it has been inspiring to see so many brothers gathering virtually around the world and working together to help each other, the community around them, and our fraternity. And while we continue to compile and share resources and ideas, there's no blueprint for success in an uncharted environment. But we will continue to work together, learn together, adapt together, and together ensure that our chapters and our organization remain strong. There's been a lot of change the past few months, not just with Delta Sigma Pi, but across all aspects of life. If there's one thing that I've learned these past few months though, it's that that change will continue. So we need to be flexible and able to adapt as well. And by doing that and working together, we'll achieve our goals. So as we wrap up here tonight, I'm going to pass things back over to Jeremy so we can try and provide answers to any questions you've submitted throughout the evening. We might not be able to get to everything tonight, so if you've included your name when asking the question, we'll make sure to follow up with you in the coming days.
So thank you, Tricia. So we do have a couple of questions here that we're going to knock out, but if you have more questions, if there was something you were hoping we were going to cover this evening and we haven't yet, please do go ahead and enter that into that Q&A box. Again, you should be able to see it. I believe it's going to be on the bottom of your screen, a little button that says Q&A. The first question that we have here, and I'll let either Tricia or Lisa answer it, whichever one wants, is Jeff Winther asks about our chapter growth goal. We were originally aiming for 250 chapters. We're at 225. Does that mean we failed, or what are we at, and what's the plans with that?
I can start, and then Trisha, if you want to then jump in after. I think the question was it a lofty goal? I don't necessarily think it was a lofty goal. We had 7 new installed chapters in that 1 year when we started the strategic priorities, and we had I'm looking at the numbers right now, 24 chapters in the 5 years previous to that. So I think that it was set based on being a stretch goal. And so I think that that's good. I think we also had 15 new chapters come in. So depending on what we would have here, we potentially might have got there. Now, yes, did we close chapters because of some issues and those things? We couldn't necessarily have taken that so much into consideration. So when we look at the next set of strategic priorities, we will definitely look at the trends that we had over the last over these 5 years, and look and kind of take some of the lessons learned into account when we create those next set of strategic priorities. So Trisha, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think Lisa outlined it perfectly as I would have. When we looked at, and the board looks at these goals, and we look at our chapters and any situations that we face, we always keep in mind the consideration that, if we do need to close a chapter, the welfare of the organization and our members always comes first. Versus trying to just achieve a goal. So we're always looking at the betterment of what is best for the organization, what is best for the chapter, and what is best for those members within any of these goals is our top priority.
Absolutely. I'll also add that we've made a lot of staff structure changes that have facilitated, even just in the past year, for the sake of these goals. So even though we perhaps didn't reach the goal this year, I do believe that we are in a better position in the next 5 years to increase that growth rate, just based off of the structures that we've put in place and the decisions that we've made in the past 5 years. Thanks for that question. The next one that Rich asked, but I am confident many people are asking, is just they want more details on LEAD. So I will, he asked just about the scheduling of things. I'll share a little more detail that the kickoff event is going to be on October 3rd. And we've got 2 weeks of educational sessions following that, pretty much every night, just some different breakouts and educational sessions, as well as then a full week of provincial gatherings and alumni gatherings and such like that. But I was wondering, Trisha, do you have more secrets you can share to whet some people's excitement?
Yeah, we have some great keynotes. You'll see some fun stuff from the board as well and our volunteers. So we're really excited, although we can't get together in person, ways that we can connect virtually. So it won't look exactly like a LEAD in person, but we looked at how we can reformat it in a way to keep all of the benefits that we see in LEAD, but in a virtual format. And I know Rich asked about the spring provincial conferences. Well, we just approved going virtual there. So as we are starting that planning process and what that will look like, and I have no doubt that we'll get a lot of lessons learned out of our fall LEAD school.
Absolutely. I think this question here from Keith is going to be my favorite question of the night. As an alumni member, how do I register my interest in volunteering my time? Oh, thank you for asking. The best way is dsp.org/get involved, or just hit the big button that says alumni, and you'll see a button to get involved. There's a volunteer interest form on there. Or if you're more of an email person, Delta Sigma Pi at dsp.org. Just say, I want to help, and we'll find a place for you, I'm sure. Erica wants to know about chapter award winners, and when will those be announced? So the plan for that is for them to be announced prior to the LEAD school, the virtual LEAD, but specific details have not yet been decided. All righty. If there are any other questions, we would love to answer them. Please do enter them in. Otherwise, I think on behalf of all of us, just want to say thank you for coming this evening. I am not seeing any other questions. So Tricia, do you want to close us out?
Sure. Thank you for everyone who joined us tonight. Thank you for those who provided some questions as well. The world is changing daily, and we are so thankful for our members. The past few months have been unprecedented, but I know that our chapters appreciate all of the guidance and support as they are navigating through their uncertainties on campus. So thank you so much to everyone for your continued support of Delta Sigma Pi as we work through this virtual world. And thank you for your active participation this evening. So keep asking questions. Use your local volunteer leaders and our staff as a resource and a network. And I look forward to seeing everybody virtually at LEAD this fall.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.